Crushing it, brother.
So we started this climb with the most sobering news you can possibly imagine. We passed a group of 4 climbers. They were all visibly shaken. They shared with us that hours earlier they witnessed a climber fall nearly 1,000 feet to her death. Colorado has 58 peaks, all above 14,000 feet. She had saved the most difficult for last. She was on her 58th and final summit when a rock gave way, and she gave her life to the mountain. I was instantly hit with the mountain of disbelief, and the reality set in that I could die on the mountain. And that evening when we set up our tent and campsite, I chose to focus on my purpose and not my fear. Because when I heard that news, it was a gripping fear. And when I first got a look at the knife edge on Capitol Peak, it was gripping as well. But by focusing on my purpose, I was able to overcome my fear. I understand that not all of us are made to climb mountains. Not all of us are capable or even have that desire. But I know in my heart that we all face mountains of disbelief. The mountains in our life that seem insurmountable, the things in our life that leave us feeling powerless. Those are the mountains that we all face. At 40 years old, my life did change in a very profound way. I think everyone looking in, we were living the American dream. We had become millionaires at 40. We had paid off our first home at 30, our first apartment complex at 34. Like, our life was good. And then, in an instant, everything changed for me. So I suffered a major heart attack. My high school sweetheart, the woman that I had loved since I was 17 years old, we separated and ultimately divorced. And I went into a very dark place. It's the only time in my life that literally no light was coming in. And it's the only time in my life that I contemplated suicide. I was like broken and hopeless. So that morning I rode my bicycle to Warrior Fitness. I had a high-intensity interval training session with U.S. Navy SEAL Paul Watson. It was 15 minutes after my workout, I started sweating profusely. So I was embarrassed because I have never sweaten after a workout. I remember I was grabbing my chest and the back of my arm was on fire, and my solution was to ride my bicycle to the far corner of the gym so I could be alone. There in the far corner of the gym, I did collapse. I collapsed to my hands and knees, and at that point, I was already breathing rapidly. So 2 women had came to my aid that day. Those were my 2 angels. And I looked up to one of them, and after nearly an hour, I said, "Hey, something's not right. We need to call the ambulance." And the ambulance arrived, and I'm a pretty determined person, so I was determined to walk it off. I was pacing the parking lot, telling them likely I was having a nervous breakdown. After 30 minutes, the paramedic said, "Hey, Noah, we're going to let you go home and sleep it off, right?" I wanted to be alone, and then I wanted to sleep it off. And I said, "Okay, let's do one more test." And they did an EKG. So within moments, the ambulance door was being slammed shut. And I had no idea what I would face. I had no idea the mountains of disbelief that I was about to face. I'll never forget waking up in the hospital bed, seeing the wires in my arm, and being surrounded by my family, and hearing the doctor utter those words, "Surgery was successful." I was like, "Doc, what are you talking about? What's going on right here? What do you mean surgery was successful?" And at that moment, I learned that I was lucky to be alive and that I had survived a major heart attack. So that high-intensity interval training session caused a little piece of plaque to dislodge in my body. Just worked its way up. It's called the pulmonary embolism. Went straight to the main artery in my heart. That would be the widowmaker, and it just shut it down 100%. So I am truly lucky to be alive, and I'm truly lucky to be here today. I believe I got a second chance at life, and I did. So after my heart attack, it was this crazy mountains of disbelief that I was facing. I really started suffering from extreme anxiety and a gripping fear, really a fear that I had never known in my life, a fear that had me paralyzed to move. And a big part of what I'm going to talk about today is indetermination, how we move, never stop moving. And I would lay in my bed for days on end, and I would just like every twinge in my heart, every pain in my arm, it's like I was reliving my entire heart attack all over again. And my mind was running rampant. Like, what if it happens again? What if next time you're not so lucky? What if all these beautiful adventures I've taken my son on come to an end? Like, what if I don't get to be a grandpa? I mean, it was just out of control. And it was a gripping fear, a fear that made me afraid to move. I'm a mountain man. I'll share more about that. Ever since I was a little boy, I did my first long-distance backpacking trip with my parents. It was like a 40-mile adventure, and it became one big adventure to me. My father always said, don't go out in the snow. The snow-covered mountains are too dangerous. And then I found myself in the midst of my despair, my brokenness, my fear. I just had this incredible sensation that the mountains were calling me. So against the wishes of my family, I got my dog, my son's dog, a beagle, my gear, my backpacking gear, my cold weather gear, my Bible, and I headed to the Sierra Nevada in below freezing temperatures. And it was my second night on the mountain. It was 18 degrees. My beagle was tucked deep within the down sleeping bag. I stepped outside of my tent on my second night. I can still hear the snow like crunching beneath my feet. And I was in a complete place of vulnerability. And I had no idea why I felt summoned or called to the mountains, but that's where I was. I was all alone. There was no cell phone service. The ambulance wasn't going to be there to help me. I was vulnerable. I was also in a complete place of clarity. I remember the moon was full, the stars just illuminated the snow-covered landscape. I was vulnerable, I had clarity, and in that moment, I made a declaration. I raised my hands to the heavens, I had my eyes closed. I just said, you know what, God? If you're gonna take me, you could take me, but I'm not gonna live my life in fear. And I guess I went to the mountains to wrestle God, and God didn't take me. I used to be afraid of heights. The video that you saw on screen would have terrified me before 5 years ago. I didn't realize that all kinds of switches were going off in my body and that I was embracing fear. The first point I'd really like to make is this. To move the mountains of disbelief in my life, I chose to focus on my purpose and not on my fear. And I've come to this understanding that when you focus on your purpose, you just understand that there's going to be challenges, there's going to be adversity, there's going to be fear confronts, things that you're not comfortable with. But when you focus on your purpose, helps you overcome your fear. The day we got news of Capitol Peak, I chose to focus on my purpose and not the death of the woman. Secondly, I choose to go investigate for myself. I choose to go and experience it for myself. How many times in my personal life, in my work career, on the mountain, have I heard, I wouldn't do that? Too risky, too dangerous. Sometimes, yes, sound advice. Sometimes you have to experience it for yourself. When we started buying real estate when we were younger, a lot of people, that's too risky, too dangerous, I wouldn't want to deal with tenants. Some 19 doors later, real estate's been one of the best things to happen to me. But I had to experience it for myself. You can read the reviews, hear people's opinions, all the things, but you have to experience it for yourself. The second thing, I choose to do hard things. To move the mountains of disbelief in my life, I choose to do hard things. Standing right here, right now, that clip in the beginning is actually easier. This is a hard thing. But hard things build an indomitable spirit. When you get out of your comfort zone and you do hard things, that builds an indomitable spirit. I'm a mountain man. I'm a winter mountaineer. Been above 14,000 feet some 50 times now, oftentimes in the dead of winter, frigid temperatures. Sometimes the wind is so fierce that your only option to keep from being blown off the side of the mountain is to take a knee. And you could feel the wind. I mean, it's like rocking and whipping and pulling you. You can hear the wind screaming and howling. I howl back. Determined people howl back. Ow! Howl back at the mountains of disbelief in your life. Howl back. Let's see here. Third point, to move the mountains of disbelief in your life, never stop moving. So several years after my heart attack, I decided to embark on the road trip and adventure of a lifetime. Didn't do a Mercedes-Benz van conversion, didn't get a camper. When I determined to go, I went. My car, a four-door sedan Chevy Impala, cut out the passenger seat, went to Home Depot, bought some lumber, made a bed. Ordered a 5-inch foam mat. I figured, well, I want to see America real closely. I got a place to sleep. That's going to be 90% of the battle. My road trip took me all across America. People said I was crazy. People said I could never do that. I could never live out of a tent. I could never do those things. My road trip lasted 547 days. So I backpacked and I explored America everywhere from New Mexico into Canada. Had to get my son in here. So exactly 1 year ago today, it's almost 1 year ago on the dot, I had a major ski accident in the mountain. I looked down and my right foot was mangled. It did a 180-degree lateral rotation. So I reached down and I forced my foot back into place. The 3 loud pops told me that my road trip had come to a close. Believe it or not, most of that footage, the last screen is all post-accident. So it was 100 days after my surgery, and I explained to my surgeon my physical therapy, and he said, Noah, every now and again, a maniac like you comes along. Kind of made me happy to hear him say that. I just said, you know what, Doc? I'm not a maniac. I am determined. I am determined to never stop moving. The day of my heart attack, I had a massive day hike planned in Yosemite National Park. It was 22 miles with 6,000 feet of elevation gain. And I'm thankful I wasn't on the mountain that day. And as crazy as it might sound, I'm thankful for the day of my heart attack. I would have never imagined on the other side of my mountain of disbelief, just the pain, the hurt, the fear, the wanting to commit suicide. I would have never imagined that on the other side of my mountain, there was a beautiful story that I'm still writing. And I know for us here in the audience and those that are listening, I believe in all my heart, with all my heart, that on the other side of your mountain of disbelief is a beautiful story too. Thank you.